All right. So here you guys can see I have two instance launched in this EC2 section. And right now I have just disabled the new experience. I have switched to the older one because there was some issue related to the viewpoint of the load balancer, maybe some issue from the Amazon side. So as you guys can see, we have two instances. One is Nginx and second one is Apache, right? The same scenario that we were doing on that day, which were there where we were facing some issues because initially we skipped the entry of the security group, and the second time we skipped the entry of the adding that instance in the target group, right? That's why we got those errors. Now today, everything same. The only change is that the I have added one more rule in the load balancer. When it comes to the load balancer, and if you view the rules, I have added one more rule here. One is for the Nginx and second one is for the Apache. So if the path is slash Apache, it will go to the Apache target group. If the path is slash Nginx, it will go to the Nginx, right? This is the only thing here. And when you guys will try to open this, so here is a little bit kind of surprise for you if you guys are able to identify what's the issue. Let's see how you guys good in Linux. So this is the default page. Okay. So if you guys check the default one, so here I have added three entries because one should be the default one. If we are not passing any path where it should route the request. So it will be by default Nginx, right? So that's why I have added to one more here. So now this time this is the last and all twos are on the. So one is the first, second, and this is the last one. So this will work when there is no path. Now if you go here and type the Apache, what you guys see here. Hello. What do you guys think? What is
Oh
this?
yeah, it's
This is an error, right?
yes.
Okay. So when I'm hitting the slash Apache, I'm getting this error. Again, read this error carefully. But when I start hitting slash Nginx, again I'm getting the error, right? But if you guys carefully check, when I'm hitting slash Nginx, I'm getting the error from Nginx, right? As you can see, the error is by Nginx web server. And when I am hitting Apache, I'm getting error from the Apache web server. What does it means? It means path-based routing is working perfectly. This was the same thing that was happening on that time. We were getting the error, but the error was from the Apache web server. Okay. Now, why this is happening? Because as I told you on that day that we have to make some changes in the configuration. Why we have to make the changes in configuration? Because in the configurations you have to define if somebody sends the request on slash Apache, what should we serve to him? Okay, so the web server should know what to serve when slash Apache is the path. So this path is being sent to the Apache web server and the whole path, not the request only, the whole path with the path slash Apache. So if you just open the public IP address, now on that scenario that we discussed on that day, on the Friday, we didn't have the public IP address, right? Because we were using the private, we can say private network, right? So that's why we were not able to identify the exact issue. But if you guys to pick the public IP address of the Apache and open the public IP address here, you will see it works fine. But if you hit slash Apache here, you guys will see the error is exact same as this error. The only difference is that the errors comes from the public IP and here error shows the load balancer DNS, right? So the error is given by the Apache. That means our request is landed on the Apache server. So path-based routing was working perfectly. You guys got it?
Uh,
If you guys
I'm
have
not.
any
I'm not
doubts,
clear. Sorry.
okay, let me tell you. What happens whenever we talk about these web servers, okay? For example, this is one EC2 instance, this is another EC2 instance, okay? And here we have the load balancer. I'll be Apache Nginx. So what's happening here, whenever you are sending request to LB and the request is going with the path of Apache, okay? Slash Apache, okay? And here we are sending the request when it's slash nginx. Now, if we talk about the load balancer level, the work of the load balancer is to perform the routing, right? So whenever the load balancer will receive slash Apache, it should redirect the traffic to Apache web server. And whenever the load balancer should receive the path as slash nginx, it should redirect the traffic to nginx server. This is what it is doing, right? There is no issue with the load balancer work. If you hit the path, if I hit Apache here, it's routing to the Apache web server. That's why I'm getting error from the Apache. Here you can see the name is Apache. If I type nginx here, as you can see, I'm getting the error from nginx, not from the Apache. So why we are getting these errors? The reason behind these errors is that the request is landed on these servers, but there is no page on slash Apache in this server. And as well as there is no page in slash nginx here, right? That's why we are getting the error. So those web server programs are giving the error, not the load balancer. You guys got it? So this error is a 404 error, that means page not found. So web server is not able to find the page. The load balancer worked perfectly. Hello.
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Yes, got it.
Okay. If any one of you have doubts, you can ask, then I will clear it more. But I think it's pretty much clear. So remember that web server is also a program. If there is no, for example, if I just hit like this, google.com slash help me, hello me, what it will say? 404 error, right? Means page not found. This is the same thing what is happening with the web servers because there is no page called Apache and there is no page called Nginx. We were just testing the path-based routing, not the web servers. For to solve that issue, we have to create a page called Apache. We have to create a page with the name of Nginx in those servers. Then the error will be resolved. So let's try that as well. Okay. So if we want to test that, let's try that as well. So here, this is the, I guess, Nginx server. Okay, I need to get to the downloads folder first. Okay, so first of all, need to get need sudo here. As you can see, Nginx is running fine. Slash var www html. Hit enter, and as you can see, this is the default index.html, right? So let me try this one. It's just an experiment because if the configuration is done by default, then it will work. If there is some issue with the if there is some changes required in the configuration, then we have to define the path in the configuration as well. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a file called.
I have one question. Like you logged in the load balance
No, no, no,
server or
not
you
the.
logged?
We cannot log into the load balancer. Load balancer is not a server. Okay, we cannot log in. I logged into the Nginx server.
Okay, okay.
What I can do is echo hello world to nginx.html. Hello world, it's hello world, not world. If I just try to refresh this, maybe no, this will not be resolved. So yeah, I need to define some paths. So if you guys are wondering what is path, I will just show you. I won't do the configuration change because it will require more time. As you can see, this is the configuration file where most of the things are defined, and because of the color it's not visible. Let me open one more configuration. Nginx, and Nginx we have sites enabled, default. Yeah, so this is the configuration file, but due to the color it's not clearly visible. Let me try disabling the night light here. I guess you guys will be able to see it little bit, right? As you can see, server is mentioned here, listen 80. Now here you guys can see the location is slash, right? Whenever the location is slash, it will redirect to this path, var www.html. The slash means by default, if you're just hitting the server. Now, it is not mentioned when the location is slash nginx. So we need to create one more entry here. The location should be slash nginx. Then we have to define the path for that HTML file as well. And here, as you can see, multiple HTML files are mentioned already. Okay, and as well as whenever the path is something else, the like this, it will give the 404. That's the error that we are getting over there. You guys got it? Now this will take time. That's why I'm not doing the changes here. But if you guys have any more doubts, you guys can ask. It's a complete separate topic. Web server is a complete separate topic. Hello, you guys got it?
Yes, Manish.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, as a result, the load balancer is working fine. That's why we are getting the one error from Apache and one error from Nginx, right? Now let's jump to the another topic, and the topic is auto scaling groups. Okay, the ASG. We will cover two topics today. One is ASG, and the second one is storages in AWS. So first, let's talk about the ASG. How many of you already know about the auto scaling groups? Anyone?
I'm aware about the concept.
Okay, so what's the concept?
So the load is not going to be uniform for any website or a server. So auto scaling group, all the servers inside it, it will make sure to scale up and down depending on the load and criteria which we set. So whenever there is a peak load, it is going to increase the number of. So it's like horizontal scaling instead of vertical scaling. So instead of adding bigger servers, we add more servers so that the load can be distributed and the site functions well. And when the load is low, we can just remove those servers so the cost is also low.
Exactly, 100% perfect. So auto scaling group or ASG is basically you can say a feature provided by AWS to handle the load on these servers. So what happens in the auto scaling group? What we do, we actually use the load balancer to identify the load or to judge what should be done. Okay, so there will be a load balancer layer initially, and that layer will communicate with the auto scaling group. You can say brain or structure, which will manage the number of servers. So what happens here? Initially, we use one AMI. You guys know about the AMI, right? AMI is the image or the state of the server that we talked about earlier. Here we are also going to create the AMI. Now through that AMI, the instances will be launched. All the instances will be exactly same, or you can say clone. So what happens whenever the load is high? Whenever the load balancer feels the load is high, then it will perform the auto scaling. Now this auto scaling will be done vertically. That means the number of instances will be increasing, right, to handle the load. Now, whenever the load is normal or it's back to normal, it will decrease the number of servers, and it will just switch to that one server or two server, whatever you will decide over there. So this is how auto scaling works. It's just a very simple concept. That means if you have the high load, just increase the number of server to balance the load. And whenever the load is normal, just reduce the number of servers to save the cost, as well as the application will be working fine. Here we have very less chances of application failure, and as well as it will be able to handle very high amount of load. So these kind of technologies are being used in DevOps at multiple tools. Like if we talk about the Kubernetes or any other tool, we have similar kind of feature available over there as well. It's not limited to the AWS, because auto scaling is very basic thing which is required these days. You cannot run 3 or 4 servers from the beginning, like hoping that the load will come and these servers will be handling the load. For example, if you have launched the 5 servers to on one application for one application, now your load is very low. Only one server can handle the load. Only one server is enough to handle the load. Then the rest of the 4 servers are idle, and as well as you are wasting your money in that. So that's why auto scaling group comes in the picture. It will save the cost, and as well as whenever it is required, it will increase the number of servers. Okay. Now you can use the auto scaling accord in multiple situations. Like you can perform the deployment. You can use the auto scaling in the deployment cycles as well. there are many uses of autoscaling. So in my project, what I'm doing is I'm performing the deployment using the autoscaling. Like for example, there's an application called there's one application. You can think that application name is XYZ. Now it requires three servers to be up of one time, right? So what I did, I have created an autoscaling group in which three servers are running 24/7, right? And those servers have one AMI. Okay, AMI means the image. In the AMI, there is a snapshot attached. That snapshot is related to the storage, right? We will talk about storage as well today. So AMI is attached every time with these servers, same AMI, and every server has its own AMI. So what I'm doing in my case, I'm using this technology, this autoscaling group for the deployment cycle as well. So I have created one pipeline to perform the deployment, and in this AMI, I have written one script. There's a script in the AMI. What that script does, it picks the artifact from the artifactory, or you can say S3, any place. It picks the artifact. Artifact means the build of the project. Or you can understand it as a latest code. It picks the latest code from a place. This is the functionality of this script. It picks the latest code from a place. Now what happens whenever a new server is launched? You guys remember I talked about the user data. You guys remember about the user data? We used the user data while launching the instances on Friday as well.
Yes, we can have the configuration in it.
Nice configuration.
Exactly. So whenever a new server is launched in the ASG, you can also use the user data in that case. Okay. So what happens whenever a new server comes up? In my scenario, I'm talking about my scenario. Whenever a new server comes up, the script is executed because I have written that command or to execute the script in the user data. So the script is executed, it goes to the place and brings up the new code into the system, and the server comes up. So what's happening here, what I do for the deployment, like for example, the developers has done their work and now they want me to deploy the new code on the server. So what I do, I just multiply the number of servers. Like for example, three servers are running, I multiply it by two. So now what I have six servers running, right? In which three servers are on new code and three servers are on old code. And after what I do, I remove the three servers. And I have applied some policy which automatically removes the old servers. So in the ending, what I have, three servers running with the new code. You guys got it? Was a scenario that I am using in my project. You guys got it?
Yes, I have one more question regarding this. So
Yes.
when we use the auto scaling, it is only going to be for the same type of server. So like you have servers for different uses, right? We cannot have the auto scaling group, like all the servers in that group, right?
Look, there are multiple ways to use the auto scaling, but when it comes to the this auto scaling group only, like when we talk about AWS auto scaling, this concept says that every server will be same server. That's why it's
Okay.
handling the load. Because if I have two different kinds of servers, how they would be handling the load, right? If one is down, another will be serving something else. That's why they
Yeah,
should
that
serve
makes
same.
sense.
Yeah, that's why they should serve the same thing because they are in the auto scaling group or they are in the group to handle the load for the same component or for the same application.
Got it.
Okay. Any other doubts?
Hey Manish, here the load means the only incoming traffic or something
Look,
else.
what happens whenever traffic comes on the server
Mhm.
performs the task and gives the response, right? That we just tried here. Like we are getting the 404 error. So that's a work of a web server program. So if the application is very high application, for example, the application is built on Java. Java is a very high programming language. So in that case, they use a web server called Tomcat. They don't use the Apache or Nginx. Sometimes they use these servers, but Tomcat is very useful when it comes to deploy or work on the Java-based applications. Tomcat is also related to Apache. It comes the Apache organization. Okay, comes under the Apache organization. So don't get confused between the Tomcat and Apache. When I'm saying Tomcat, Tomcat is dedicatedly for Java. So what happens when the web server is performing the task? What web server is doing? It's running the application, it's executing the application, performing the task. So that execution will take some memory. And when we have lots of requests, that means the memory demand will increase. And there will be one situation where our resources, the memory and CPU, will be not that enough to handle the load. This is called load. Okay. Now, in this case, there will be another server launched to balance the load. Now, the requests will be divided in some way, most probably equally, right? And the load will be divided between the servers, and we will not face any kind of failure, because if the number of requests increase in one server, okay, and the server RAM or CPU gets full, and the server will not be able to serve the request, you will not get the response, or you will get response very late. That's why we use this auto scaling concept. Clear?
Yes, Manish. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's talk about the auto scaling group. So as I told you, first we need a AMI. So before I start, what I'm doing here is I'm removing one server. So I'm removing the Apache server from here because no need of Apache right now. Let me go back. Okay, I just launched this server to, actually this is the old experience. Let me switch to the new back because I'm not able to handle this old one. Yeah, here is Apache. Here we have the actions and instance state, and just terminate the server. So this basically this is just a new and old UI look, just a toggle provided by them. Earlier the UI was like this, and now it's a bit modern. So it's very difficult to work with this UI because the action button was here, now it come. Action button was here, now it's here. So I have a habit of using action button from here. All right. So now you guys can see we have Nginx server running, and to perform the task we need one AMI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the AMI of this Nginx server. So to create the AMI, for example, you guys are going to create the AMI of production server. What you guys have to do is click on create AMI. Now you have to provide the AMI name. So ASG hyphen AMI. Okay. Now here you guys can see there is the option of no reboot. Now you should enable this option because if you don't enable this, your server will be rebooted to create the AMI. Okay. So if you click it enable, that means your server will not be rebooted to create the AMI. It's just very simple. Now you guys must be wondering why we have this option. Nobody is going to use this option, right? Because who wants to reboot the server just to create the image? So if you guys remember, whenever we are going to backup of the image, or whenever you guys are going to take backup of any server, image of any server, it was necessary to earlier when we talk about the hardware based servers or data center servers, on premises servers, it is necessary to reboot the server or shut down the server before we take the backup, create the image. Now, in this state, because we are using the concept of EC2, where there is nothing real, everything is virtually divided. So they have provided us the functionality to create the backup real time. But for example, if there is any process, ongoing process in Nginx server, that process will be on hold for some time till the AMI is created. So remember that if it's not rebooting the server, then the process will also be on hold for some, maybe for a few seconds only, but it will be on hold to create the backup, because AMI contains the whole state of the server. It's not the backup of hard drive only. It's the whole server. Okay. Now in the target group, we also have to delete the one target group, which was we deleted Apache one, right? Let's delete the Nginx. Delete. So as you guys can see, this Apache is currently in use by the listener rule, so we can't delete this. So what we have to do, we have to go on the load balancer side. Now, as I told you, load balancer is a bit changed for right now. So I was a little bit confused to use this load balancer. So let's click on LB and network mapping. Not this one. Yeah, listeners is here. Click here and is it the same thing? No. Or yes, I don't know. Yeah, here we have the rules. Okay. So yeah, we are using the new UI. That's why the rules were changed. Now we got the old one back. Yeah, that's great. Let's click on the minus symbol here and let's remove the rule of Apache and as well as for the Nginx. Because right now there is no need of these rules. Let's go back and I guess the image will be ready now. So I will let you know how to create the auto scaling groups. So what we have to do first is for the auto scaling, there is one thing which is very important, and that thing is launch template or launch configuration. Now, launch template and launch configuration are basically, you can say, what I can say, the templates that help us to create the auto scaling group. It's just a template. That means you can set up whole configuration in one template, and it will be creating the servers by reading the configuration from the template, just like that. Now, there is one difference between launch configuration and launch template. First of all, you have to use only one. You can use launch template, either launch configuration. Okay. So the point is that if you use the launch templates are immutable. Immutable, that means you cannot change in the launch template. Every time you have to create a new version of the launch template. You cannot change the launch template. But when it comes to the launch configuration, you can edit the same launch configuration multiple times. But it is recommended to use the launch template because if you have done some change for the security group earlier and you want to roll back to that change, you will have the backup or you will have the version because it's maintaining the versions. But when it comes to the launch configuration, no versioning. Okay. So you can type it as test-lt launch template. You can give the name, the description, whatever you want to provide. Now here you can see we have to provide the AMI. Now you guys can select any AMI, but here what I'm going to do is I'm going to select owned AMI. So right. So here is ASG-AMI that we created recently from the Nginx server. That's why we have this AMI here. And if you guys scroll down here, we have the options of instance type, what instance type you want. So you can select any instance type. I will select t1.micro because you want to save more money. It's very cheaper. And also you need to provide the key. So DevOps is the key. It's same as launching the instance, but we are not launching the instance. We are just creating the template. So you have specified all the configurations that you require to launch the instances of autoscaling group. Now you are going to use the same template in the autoscaling group to launch the instances. It's just very simple. Okay. Now here you can provide the security groups as well. So I will pick the default one here. Now EBS is here. By default, it will pick the hard drive which was attached to the wall or hard drive or volume which was attached to the AMI. It will create the similar volumes. If you want to create a new one, you can add a new one here. Okay. Also in the advanced details, if you guys load down here, we have the user data, same as the instance launching. So I told you about my scenario where I was doing the deployment using the ASG and I was triggering the script from user data. So I entered the script, the command to execute the script here in the launch template user data. That's why in every instance, I'm getting the script executed in the beginning. Okay, so you guys can enter anything here if you want. So let's skip it for now and let's create the launch template only.
I have one question
Yes.
because we took the AMI from the Nginx server, so it will take the same user data, right?
No, it will not take the same user data because you provided user data to create the server on the beginning of the server, right? Now, when the server
Okay.
is launched, the user data is no more. It's just a script which was executed when the Nginx server was launched. That's it. The script is gone now. It is executed automatically on the beginning. Now, if you want to execute script every time when you launch the server from the autoscaling group, then you have to define the user data here in the launch.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you guys can see, the default version is one, the latest version is one. Now, why we have two versions? Okay. The default one means if you want, we will have the category in the autoscaling to select the default one or to select the latest one. So you can decide it from there. Also, you can select another version which is currently going on. So you can just select these versions in the autoscaling group as well. Now, as you can see, every detail is mentioned here. Yes, I do you have any doubt? Like, I guess someone's mic is unmuted. Okay, so let's jump to the auto scaling group now. Here we are on the auto scaling group. Let's create the auto scaling group. Here we have to provide the name of the auto scaling group. So I will just give it as test ASG. Select the launch template as you guys can see. Switch to launch configuration. We have the option of launch configuration as well. But I will suggest you guys to use the launch template because it's the newer thing and most probably you guys will be using this. Now, as you guys can see, we have the version of default here. Default, latest, and you can select the proper version from here as well. If you keep it as latest, what will happen whenever you're going to do any change in the launch template? A new version will be created automatically, and by default, that version will be picked from here because if you have selected latest. So you keep changing on the launch template, there is no need to change here. Okay, so it will automatically pick the latest version. But again, remember that this is not recommended. Why not recommended? Because if this is your production server, that means this is a live application, and accidentally you've done some wrong changes in the launch template, it will automatically apply those changes. So remember this. So as suggested, you guys should select the version, not the latest one, not the default. Because if you have done some change over there and you have selected that version as the default one, again the change will reflect here. Okay, so never do the stuff which will impact the production automatically. Sometimes these changes, in these changes, you have to verify uh, the results, right? So you cannot apply these things directly to the production. Now, because we have selected the version here, we can click on the next, and here we have some instance requirements. As you can see, all the details are mentioned over here. If you want to override the launch template, you can also do that. It's just up to you. Also, we have the information of auto scaling group. Now here we have to provide the minimum two availability zones here. Sorry, availability zone information. Here we have to provide minimum two availability zones. Why? Because when it comes to the auto scaling group, that's also handling the load. So the load should be divided into multi-AZ or multiple, we can say availability zone. That's why we are using multiple availability zones here. Okay. Also, you guys can select the networking settings from here. Let's click on next. Now, as you can see, we have the information of the load balancer. You guys can attach the load balancer or you guys can work without the load balancer as well. Traffic to your auto scaling group will not be will not be fronted by a load balancer. Yeah, there will be no load balancer, and or you can attach the load balancer as well. Okay, you can attach an existing load balancer, or you guys can also create a new load balancer. So from here directly. So what we can do, we can attach a load balancer. Let's click here. Let's attach the load balancer, and it says not associated with the load balancer. And here it's associated with the load balancer. So what we are going to do is we are going to select this target group. Okay, so we are going to use the existing load balancer. Okay, so we have to select the target group, or we can select another target group, which is this Nginx. Okay, which is also attached to the load balancer. Let's select this one because it's already attached to the load balancer. Now here you guys can see it's a health check option here. Now here by default EC2 is enabled. So if EC2 health is good, that means good to go. There is no issue in the server. If you want to enable the ELB health check, you can also do that. There is also health check grace period. Now what is the meaning of health check grace period? Whenever a new server comes up, initially it's not necessarily the server will be healthy. The reason why, because maybe there is some process going inside the server because we have implemented the user data, and maybe that user data take few minutes to apply to perform every task which is mentioned into that script, right? So you can also set up a few grace period so that it will whatever time it requires it will take, and then the server will come up. If you want to enable CloudWatch or monitoring, extra monitoring, you can also do that. We will talk about this later. So that's all. Click on next. Now here you have the information. Now this is the most important thing to see. Okay, so listen this carefully. First of all, we have the desired capacity. Second one, we have the minimum capacity, and the third one, we have the maximum capacity. Maximum means when the load is high, the maximum amount of servers you want to be launched. You can define here. So depending on your pocket, you can select the number of servers. It's just very simple. Okay, but definitely it should worth, right? If the requirement is only two servers or three servers, you are launching 30 servers. It's not like that. it will charge you a lot. So what we can do here is we can select 3 here. Now minimum capacity means if the number of server is less, or like for example if the load is very low, where how many servers should be running, at least how many servers should be running. Okay, so you can select it as 1. Now the desired can be the middle one. Okay, means initially how many servers you wanted to be launched. Initially, what is your desired capacity, like which is the balanced one, not too high, not too low, the balanced one, that will be 2. Okay, so this is how you will be deciding the size. You can also increase the number of these capacities later as well, after launching the security group. Sorry, after launching the auto scaling group. So here, when I told you about this example, what I do, I actually increase all these three values. I just develop them. So in my period, I'm using this. So I develop them with the 2, like 666, and after that I do them half. So as I told you, we can change the values later as well. But again, as per the requirement, the values should be decided. Okay, and also the minimum value cannot be higher than the maximum value. Okay. So here we have the policies. If you want to apply any policy, target tracking scaling policy, there are multiple policies you can create. You will see the policies in the policy section. You can also learn about the policies by clicking on info. It will tell you about the all the stuff. Also, we have the enable instance scaling protection. So if you just like want to set up some protection to scale, not to scale too high, or scaling protection, you can also select that. But by default, it's optional. So wouldn't recommend to use this. Now, here you can also add the notification. Now, notification SMS is a service which allows us to send the notification. So you want that there should be a notification sent to your email. You guys can also use the Slack or Teams here. Teams directly cannot be integrated. I guess we should have to create some webhook to integrate the Teams. But yeah, things can be integrated. Okay, let's click on next. You guys can provide the tags, and remember, tags are the very important thing. Okay, why we didn't talk about the tags in the EC2? Because on that point, if you're just launching one instance, tag is not that important. But when it comes to the auto scaling group, tag is very, very important. Why? So what should be the name of your server when it comes up? It's just very simple, right? So the server name should be ASG1, ASG, right? So by default, it will give the name as ASG. Also, whenever you're going to find your servers using any infrastructure as a code tool, like you are using Terraform or any other tool, you're using Ansible, or you're using AWS CLI, tags will help you to identify your servers, to find your servers very easily. Because this is why tags are important, okay? Because we have applied the tags, so we'll be able to find these tags as well. Click on next. Now, as you guys can see, all the configuration is set it up. Let's create the launch auto scaling group. And as we have selected all the stuff, and auto scaling group is being launched, updating capacity. So initially we will have 2 instances launched in the auto scaling group. So let's wait for a few minutes. So if we just click here, and here we have more information. Let me just remove this and this. Instance management. Here you guys can see one instance is running, and the name of the instance is, no, this is the instance which is in the pending state. Okay, this one instance is running. Let's wait. Now, as you can see, one more instance has started. So we have started selected desired capacity as 2. That's why we are getting 2 instances launched automatically. Okay. So one is in service, second is in pending. I will let you know when the both are in running state. We will check them from the EC2 section as well. Now both are in service. If you go to the EC2 and refresh the, as you can see, we have 2 ASG servers running here directly, right? And now currently all 3 are same servers because we use the AMI of Nginx. But definitely these 2 servers are clone servers. Okay, you guys got the concept? You guys?
Yes.
Okay. If you guys have any doubt, you guys can ask.
Manish, that means whenever the load comes in, so
Yes.
do we need to give all these configurations, or does it? I mean, do it by itself?
Now it will perform the auto scaling automatically. There is no need to provide the information because we have already defined everything in the server, like the configuration, right? Yeah, you can create your
Yeah.
own policy as well. That's just up to you. But now, right now, it will perform the like handle the load automatically because it's auto scaling group. But if you go to the auto scaling here, we also have the policies here. You can define your own policies as well.
So does it auto scales according to our configuration, or
According to right now, it will
I
work
mean
that
our AMI?
yeah, it will work. It will launch the servers depending on our AMIs.
Okay.
Okay, so here you can create your own auto scaling policy. Okay, there are multiple ways to create the policies. You guys can like tracking scaling, tracking policy, average CPU utilization. If you guys want to create on the basis of CPU utilization, if you guys want to create on the basis of network in, network out, it's just up to you. Okay, you guys can create the policy as per your use. Right now, it will work by default automatically. And also here you can check out the activities going on inside the server. So if you just scroll this up and go down here, you guys can see there was something which was failed. So launching is to instance reason we have currently don't sufficient T2 micro capacity in availability zone. Okay. So as you guys can see, we got one failure message here. Now what it says that there is no T1 dot micro available in this availability zone. So that's the AWS issue. So it says that we don't have T1 dot micro available in your zone. So that's why we got the failure state here. So that's the reason why it is launched in another, I guess, availability zone. Initially, they tried to launch it into 1A, but in 1A, there is no T1 micro resource available. Maybe they are completely busy. That's why so both the resources are launched in 1B. Okay, so I didn't stop the server. I didn't create the server. It handled the situation automatically. This is why using auto scaling group is a good idea. You guys got it?
Yeah, Manish. That means we have to predict the load before creating our AMIs, right?
Like it's not necessary to predict the load. Okay, so what happens, for example, you are a developer, you already know what kind of load your application is going to generate. Okay, and if you're working on a huge project, if you know your audience, so you know what how much load can come on your application. For example, if Amazon is throwing the Great Indian Sale, so he knows now how much traffic will come on the Amazon servers.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just simple. So on that basis, he can select the like they can select the load and they can select the maximum stuff. So it will work automatically.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess all the doubts are clear. So what should we do when we don't want to use the auto scaling groups? You guys can click on edit and you guys can remove change the stuff from here as well. If I just do the 000, the servers will be deleted automatically. No need to delete the whole auto scaling group, right? If you just click here and if you go to instance management, scroll this up, as you can see, these are in service. Now, as you can see, these both the instances are in the terminating state. Okay, because I changed the minimum, maximum, and desired to 0. That means no instance to be launched. So now these instances will be deleted automatically. Okay, so these instances are going to be deleted. Also, let me delete the load balancer as well because now there is no need of load balancer. This is a very great thing by AWS. They ask to write something because it's just to take your attention on the screen, like you are going to delete something. Okay, deleted, target groups, select and delete, deleted, EC2 dashboard. If you click on instances, as you can see, we have 3 instances currently running. If you close this, one is already terminated. This one is the Apache. Second is going to be shut down. And after shutting down this or terminating this will start shutting down and termination. So let's remove the Nginx as well. Now, let's talk about the storages. Okay. What do you guys mean by storage? Okay.
Where we will store the configuration files, but not the data.
No, no, no. I'm just talking about storage, only storage. Storage means storing anything, right? A space where we can store our data or anything, right? Data means everything, basically. It can be image, it can be video, it can be a file, anything. Now, when it comes to the AWS, we have mainly three types of storage. First one is EBS. Second one is, you can say,
If a file system, EFS,
S3.
S3.
Then we have EFS and also known as FXS. There is one more which is FXS. Now, do you guys know the difference about between all these three types of storage?
Somewhat, yes.
What?
Uh, I have a little bit knowledge about it.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, so the various types are either it's block or it's in file storage type or it's in the object storage type. So all three have their own utilities, and EBS and EFS can be attached directly to the EC2 machines, but S3 cannot be attached. And so when you delete the EC2, so EBS and EFS they will also be deleted as well. But for keeping the stateless, you need to use S3, and they all have their utilities. So S3 might be a little slower, but it can store more data. But for example, EFS is much faster because it's almost like SSD. Uh, I forgot the rest of the points.
Okay. Anyone else want to share something? No? All right. So let's talk about these storages now. First of all, we have the EBS. Okay. So what does EBS means? EBS means elastic block storage. So it's nothing but it's a kind of volume that we were attaching with our instances, right? You guys remember when I launched the instance, there was a volume that I selected over there. So I selected 8 gigabytes of SSD. SSD also comes in the EBS. It's not, it's like SSD, HDD, anything, any type of storage, which is a kind of block storage that comes in the EBS. Now, it's basically used to store the data or for the instances. You cannot use the EBS without the instance. It's necessary to use the EBS with the instance. Without instance, you cannot use the EBS. It's not possible to use the EBS without instance. Okay, so when it comes to the scope of EBS, you guys can understand it like this. For example, this is our VPC. Okay, VPC, and inside this VPC, like VPC is a regional level, right? As I told you earlier, VPCs are regional level. So inside region, VPC comes under the region, right? So for example, inside the VPC, we have two availability zones, or inside the region, we have two availability zones, you can say. And in these availability zones, we have two instances, right? For example, these instances are in the availability zone. So what you have to do, you have to launch the volume in the same availability zone if you want to access that volume through the instance. The volume should also be launched in the same availability zone. Remember that. Instance, okay, volume. So similarly, here also instance and volume like this. Okay, you guys got it? Like these should be in the same availability zone. These two are availability zone. AZ1, you guys can see AZ1, and this one is AZ2. Now the point is that you cannot keep the volume, like when volume is inside the VPC and inside the availability zone. Then the volume can be used by the instance. And you cannot access the data from the volume without attaching the volume on in the instance. So this is the part of EBS. There is no other of EBS. If you want to use the EBS, you have to launch the instance. And it is used to store the data, any kind of data. The data can be the files, folders that we use to create. And also here we can also use it as a database. We can store the database in the EBS as well. So this is why we call it as elastic block storage. Now the word elastic is there. Do you guys know the meaning of elastic? Like why we have the word elastic there?
Yeah,
Hello.
maybe we can increase how much we want the
Exactly. So
volume.
if you have created a volume of 8 gigabytes and now your usage of 24 gigabytes, so you guys can easily increase the volume to 24 gigabytes. It's very easy to increase. You guys can directly get the option of increasing or extending the volume from the like section of the volume. You guys can easily find that. If we just click on the volume here, I guess here we have the elastic block store in the volume. Here you can create the volume. And by creating the volume, you can select the volume type. Here we have multiple types, but I will suggest you to use the GP3, which is cost effective as compared to GP2. And also it's a SSD, right? SSDs are very faster as compared to the any other volume type. Like using HSD is not a good idea. It's very slow. And also the IOPS are high. IOPS means the input output per second. These are the operations per second, like how many operations you can perform. So it basically calculates the speed. So you will have the more IOPS in the SSD as compared to the HDD. So if we just click the HDD here, as you guys can see, it's in the Mbps, right? It's very slow. So that's why we recommend you to use the SSD. And also, as you can see, we have to select the availability zone here. So you have to create the volume in the same availability zone where you want to use it. Okay. Now let's talk about the S3. S3 doesn't comes in the picture like elastic block storage or EBS. The reason why is that because S3 is not a same thing. S3 cannot be mounted with the instance, or it cannot be mounted with the instance, and S3 doesn't comes inside the availability zone even. It comes under the region directly. Even S3 doesn't comes under the VPC. It's outside the VPC. Okay, so S3 objects or S3 buckets are outside the VPC. And S3 storage is called object storage. Now, the reason why we called it as object storage because if you have uploaded any file on S3, you cannot edit that file. If you want to edit that file, you have to download the file again, do the updation, and you have to upload that file again. This is the only way to edit the files from the S3. So S3 has a different use. Okay, you cannot use S3 as the hard drive. But when it comes to the block storage are basically for the hard drives or the volumes. You can use them as a volume. You guys got the difference? The basic difference between these two storages? Yes or no?
Yes, Manish.
Okay. Now
I
when it
think
yes,
we
yeah.
can make it. So by this, I can
Yeah,
see.
definitely we are
No, no,
going
no.
to what?
I mean, so with this EBS, we can use this EBS as a private one, and S3 we can use as it as public and private, right?
Yeah, like we EBS is basically only private for the private work, right? It is only connected to the
Yes,
instance. So your instance need require a volume, right? Like we have hard drive in our laptops.
yes,
So it's for the volume purpose.
yes,
Okay. And when it comes to the
yes,
S3, it's a kind of you can say in your phone. For example, in your phone, your storage is full. What do? You upload your data on a drive. What do you usually upload? You upload your photos and the etc. stuff, right? Photos and videos.
yes.
So S3 is a kind of that thing. You can upload the photos and media on your S3, and you can also
Okay.
retrieve them
Can
back.
we connect this S3 to VPC?
S3, yeah, we can connect the S3 with VPC. This is possible, but S3 doesn't
Okay.
comes under VPC. It's not necessary to
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
There's no option to create S3 inside the VPC. It's not inside the VPC. It's outside the VPC, but you can connect it with the VPC. We have a service called VPC endpoint. It's a very different concept where you can connect the S3 with the VPC if you want to access the data of S3 privately, not the publicly.
Uh, Okay.
Okay, so usually the use of S3 is to store the logs. Now, for the archival purpose, we use the S3 when we talk about the organizational use. There is no other use on my point. Also, some people use S3 as a front end. Like you can also deploy static websites on S3. Now, remember I said static. The website will not have any functionality. There will be only one HTML page on that website. So you can deploy them on S3. S3 is very cheap in use. It's very cheap. Like the cost is very cheap. Okay, that's why we use the S3. Now we have multiple types of cycles in S3, multiple types of storage inside the S3, where we have the object storage. We also have a place where we call it Glacier. It's an archival storage where you can place your older files, and the storage charge is very like cheap. You can place the files over there, but the point is that if you want to access that file, they will charge you for that. You can keep your stuff. They will not charge for that. They will charge very less for that. But if you are accessing that file frequently, they will charge accordingly. So this is how S3 works. Majorly, we use S3 for the archival of logs, to keep the logs, or to keep the metadata, or you can say the media. Like for example, somebody has or created a website or an application which is hosted on EC2 instance, and they kept their icons, or you can say small metadata or small stuff like icons, or you can say elements of the web page on the S3. This is how S3 is used. Now, when it comes to the EFS, okay, EFS or slash FSX. Okay, so EFS is basically I can say elastic file system. Now, why we call it as file system? Because have you guys ever heard about the NAS storage? NAS storage, NAS, network attached storage. Does anybody knows about the network attached storage?
I have little information, so it's like we can have like we connect servers to the it's like cloud storage for yourself, but on your private network. So it's like if you have multiple hard drives and you can buy the device for creating an NAS, and like how we access the file explorer, we can access all the hard drives in one network and attach it to our Wi-Fi router or whatever network we want to.
Okay, so what happens, for example, if you guys have used the CCTV cameras? So nowadays there are multiple companies who are providing these CCTV cameras that can directly send the data to the NAS storage. NAS. Now, what is NAS? NAS is basically network attached storage. It can be a hard drive, it can be SSD, which is directly attached to the network. So setting up NAS is nothing difficult. You can directly use any device or any computer which can help you to share the data over the network. So what people usually do, like right now in the market, we have multiple types of hard drives available. We have Wi-Fi hard drives available in the market, right? So those hard drives are kind of NAS. Or for example, if you in your house or you are running an organization, a small organization, where you want the people of our organization, the employees, to access the storage from the file system by logging through the username and password through the like local area network. So you can set up a NAS server in your local area and you can give them username and password. They can directly log in into it and they can access the files from the NAS. This is how NAS works. It's basically a network attached storage. It can be anything. Okay. Now, when it comes to the NAS, and we have few kind of protocols, you can say we have few types of tools. Number one is NFS, Network File System, and the second one is SMB, or you can say Samba, something called SMB. These kind of protocols are used when we talk about the NAS. Now, why I'm talking about these things in EFS? Because EFS is a similar kind of stuff. The reason of using EFS is whenever you want to share the data between two instances. In that case, you can use the EFS. Now, what will happen here? For example, there is instance 1 and there is instance 2. And between those instances, you can create one EFS. And this EFS can be mounted in both the instances. So what will happen? Either instance one do any change or either instance two do any change. The instance will be reflected to the EFS, and it's a centralized system. It's a centralized system. So anyone does the change, it will reflect on both sides. So this is the reason of using EFS. And also, except cloud, if you have any on-premise server, you can also mount the EFS to that on-premise server. It can help you in that case as well. So EFS is basically for the sharing storage. You can say that it's a shared storage. Okay, you guys got the concept? Whenever you guys need the shared storage, the common storage for multiple instances, you guys can use the EFS. Now, for example, we have two instances where we want to pass the same configuration. Okay, in that case, they can use the EFS, the Elastic File System. Now, Elastic File System is like you can create the Elastic File System in any availability zone, and it can be used in any of the, like, it can be mounted anywhere, and it comes under the VPC, just under the VPC, not under the availability zone. You can say it comes under the VPC only. So it should be created in the same VPC. Sometimes you can also use the cross regional mounting, like you can do that. We may have multiple ways to do the stuff, but remember that whenever you are doing anything cross regional, you have to pay lots of charges. Okay. And similarly, when it comes to the S3, by the way, I haven't tried EFS in the cross regional, but there are features that can help you to do so. But definitely the latency will be depending on that. Now I talked about FSX as well. Now what is FSX? Anybody knows? FSX is basically for Windows and Mac systems. Similar stuff. EFS is dedicatedly for the Linux. Okay, but both are kind of, you can say, elastic file systems. Now, why we call it as the like EFS for the Linux? Because when it comes to the file system, it depends on the file system, and it has the similar kind of root structure. It has the similar kind of structure that EBS has, because it's a kind of hard drive, as I told you. Now, the point is that in EFS, for example, if you guys have worked on Linux, you guys know about the file system. In the file system, in the Linux we have ext3, ext4, then we have XFS. So that's why you can only mount the ext3, ext4, and XFS on Linux servers only. You cannot mount them in Windows. But when it comes to NTFS, New Technology File System, this is the file system that is available in Windows. This can be mounted in Linux as well, but yeah, it's basically for the Windows. That's why there are a few things a little bit different for the Windows servers. You guys got the concept? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
So let's talk more about the S3. Now, when it comes to the S3, S3 can be accessible from anywhere in the world, because S3 is an object storage, right? We will do the practical of S3 tomorrow as well. But S3 is a, you can say, object storage where you have the URL of every object. And through the URL, you can access the object from anywhere. And as well as it's not required to use the instance to S3 objects. No, you can access the S3 object from your mobile. You can access the S3 object from any application as well, through API calls from anywhere in the world, because they are if you do them public, right? If you keep them public, you can access them from anywhere. But if they are private, then they can only access inside the resource of AWS or resources of AWS, but also you have to allow the policies for them. Okay. So this was the use of S3. So that's all for today. And we will be talking more on S3 tomorrow. We will start with the S3 practical tomorrow. Then we will move forward to further topics. If you guys have any doubts, you guys can ask.
So you said that S3 is only used